north. This stood out to me right away on the first watch. When I made my video yesterday, I mentioned it along with the reasoning behind Jon not giving Ghost the goodbye that most fans were hoping to see. I think this may very well be hinting that Jon will go north at the end of the story. Based on the comments I got, a lot of other people are thinking about it too, so let's look at the idea and see where it takes us. Before we talk about the episode itself, it should be noted that there have been several theories over the years that involve Jon leaving things behind at the end of the story. Some of those involve Jon having to sacrifice himself to protect mankind, i.e. becoming the new Night King or something along those lines. Others I've read go in a Frodo from Lord of the Rings sort of direction, where he is so affected by what he's been through, he's never really able to return to normal life and then decides to leave. In the post-White Walker Game of Thrones we now inhabit, this second idea starts to make a little bit of sense. In episode 4, we get the scene with Tormund, see that he sends Ghost north, and a couple other scenes that could definitely fit in with this idea. The interactions with Jon and Daenerys seem to hint at them not ending up together. She sees the way people look at him at the celebration and brings this up in the scene where they're alone together. She professes her love, things get steamy, but then reality sets in for Jon and he has to stop. We see there's real conflict with him and the fact that she's his aunt. She asked him to keep a secret. She feels that they could have the relationship that they had before they found out if they just don't tell anybody. If he will get Sam and Bran to swear to secrecy, everything can get back to the way things were. Jon feels like he needs to tell his family though. That's consistent from what we know about Jon, and even though it's probably a bad idea, we can see where he's coming from. But she's not really wrong either, coming from her perspective. What she's saying is true. When people find out that he has a better claim, there's a pretty high likelihood that some people are going to want him to press that, and that's going to drive them apart. Later, we see Jon brought to the Godswood with Arya, Sansa, and Bran. They basically want to tell Jon they don't trust Daenerys, they don't want him to go along with her and do what she wants. Jon points out that they needed Daenerys, or they would all be corpses and they would be in an army that was marching south, and Arya actually backs him up on this. The talk then turns to family, the importance of the fact that they're the only 4 Starks, the last of the Starks. Jon says he has to tell them something and makes them swear they won't tell anyone else. Sansa and Arya are both a little taken aback by this, but they both eventually swear that they won't give up whatever it is that Jon's about to tell them. He emphasizes here because we're family, that's why they need to do this for him. And I think that's probably the most important thing that we need to remember. From that point, after they swear, he turns it over to Bran to explain to them the whole situation. Later on, we see a scene with Sansa and Tyrion, and she basically betrays Jon by telling Tyrion the truth. I say it's a betrayal because she knows that this is not going to stay between her and Tyrion. It's going to get out there. The truth will weaken Daenerys' position, and that's part of why she does it. Of course, she says she's trying to protect Jon. Traditionally, it doesn't go well for Stark men who travel south. While that might be part of the reason why she's doing it, I don't think that's going to be enough for Jon when he finds out what happens. I think this really undermines Jon's connection to her, to the Starks, and to Winterfell altogether. Jon's a guy who cares about honor. He's honest to a fault. He didn't tell his family about his secret and make them swear and not expect that they would keep the secret. So I feel like this kind of severs his connection to them, or at least is going to have a negative impact on that in the future. After that, we see Jon in the courtyard saying his goodbyes. He decides that he wouldn't take Ghost along with him. And technically, that's not a bad idea. When he traveled south before, he didn't take Ghost. And yeah, I mean, it's not a fan favorite idea. I think everyone would like to see Ghost by Jon's side at all times. There are definitely CGI considerations and so on. So it's not that weird that Jon wouldn't take Ghost with him. But I do think it stands out that he decides to give Ghost to Tormund to take north because he could just leave Ghost at Winterfell. Sansa obviously knows the direwolf. Everyone else there obviously does, so there's no problem with just leaving him there. Instead, he decides that Ghost will be happier north of the wall for whatever reason and asks Tormund to do that for him. Tormund then tells Jon that he would be happier in the north as well, and Jon does respond that he wishes he was going with him. Traveling to Dragonstone with Tyrion, Varys points out correctly that word of Jon's claim will spread. Tyrion says that Jon wouldn't want the throne, he wouldn't want to rule, and Varys echoes Daenerys in saying, "I'm not sure it matters what he wants." This part of the argument is a little bit weak in my opinion. I told you where I was coming from. On the one hand, I don't really think Jon has shown up to be a better ruler or a more favorable ruler than Daenerys, but I won't jump into all of that in this video, because at the end of the day, Daenerys isn't exactly a perfect fit for being a ruler either. I just think the motivations are a little bit muddy. I do get what he's saying about the fact that Jon being a man and having the better claim, that works better with the lords of Westeros that they have to work with, but it feels like they're making a comparison based on how dangerous Daenerys might be, which I don't think they've really done a great job of setting up. Either way, Varys is moving in the direction of supporting Jon over Daenerys. Tyrion brings up the idea that they could be married instead. Varys seems to think that she would overpower him in that situation, basically bend him to her will, and he's probably not wrong. I mean, Jon not really being interested in being a ruler kind of fits into that. You could kind of imagine him just sitting back and being like, do whatever you want with that. I'm just going to, hang out and go practice sword fighting in the yard or something. So by the end of the episode, we can see that Cersei has provoked Daenerys in a way that there's no turning back as far as removing her from the Iron Chair or dying trying. Jon is there, ready to fight. He's honoring his pledge, and he still believes in Daenerys as the leader, but there's a lot of dissent going on behind the scenes. The outcome of the actual battle for King's Landing is not exactly clear. I don't expect that Cersei's going to win at the end, but I also don't expect that we can guarantee that both Jon and Daenerys will survive. We can speculate on that in another video that I'll do later this week, but where things are left, there's a lot of hints here that could point to Jon walking away. His romantic relationship with Daenerys doesn't seem to be working out. I don't really like the idea of them ruling together, but it seems less likely since nobody is really jumping on that whenever Tyrion's bringing it up. To this point, Daenerys hasn't said, well, hey, maybe it's a good idea if you just go out there and rule and take your claim and I'll back you up. Like, she still kind of has that idea in her mind that she wants to rule. And even if she dies and Jon's the one man left standing who has a claim, I think that he would actually walk away from that rather than sit on the throne as the king. I do think the way things went down with Sansa telling Tyrion about what Jon swore her to not tell will play a part. Plus, we know Arya left Winterfell at the end of the episode as well, with no real plans to come back, so I don't think Winterfell is where Jon will go at the end. Of course, I've left the magical side of the story out because I'm really just keeping my expectations down about that coming back into play in the last 2 episodes. It's certainly possible that there's a reason why Jon might go there. It's possible that they could get an idea that there's a potential threat from new White Walkers or some different incarnation of the Night King through Bran or something like that.